Welcome to the deep dive. There's this statement making waves right now. Maybe you've heard it.
Oh, yeah, from Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei.
Exactly. He suggested AI could wipe out, like, half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years.
5 years, I mean, that's a pretty stark warning, especially if you're just starting out, right?
It really is. It feels
Yeah.
like a direct challenge,
Yeah.
you know? How do you even prepare for that kind of shift?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you get ready when the ground feels like it's constantly shifting under your feet?
So that's what this deep dive is all about. We're not just going to, stare at the problem. We found this really insightful online post.
That If I Were 18 Again piece by Keith Hoodlet.
That's the one. On securing.dev.
Yeah, Keith Hoodlet. He's mid-career in information security leadership role now. But what makes his take so interesting is his background.
Right. He graduated right into the 2008 financial crisis.
Exactly. So he knows what it's like to struggle finding work in tough times. He mentions he's turning 40 from rural New England, been extremely online forever.
Yeah.
But he really believes the advice he's giving is timeless. It goes beyond just tech or security.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear then. We want to pull out the really actionable stuff from his post. The core strategies.
Foundational insights, yeah. Things that can help you build a solid footing no matter what AI throws at us.
It's about equipping you, the listener, with skills and, maybe more importantly, a mindset for the long haul. Sound good?
Let's dive in. So Hoodlet starts with what he calls foundation skills. Think of them as mental workouts.
Okay, and the first one is read long-form content, like books.
Yeah, sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? Like something your grandma would tell you.
Yeah, a bit.
But his argument is really powerful. He says it's a strategic survival skill now. Because while AI can process insane amounts of info, reading actual books, long articles, it does something different to your brain.
It's not just what you learn, it's how you learn it.
Exactly. It builds mental stamina, abstract thinking, that neuroplasticity thing scientists talk about. It trains your brain in ways AI just can't replicate, at least not yet.
Deeper, more complex problem solving. The human edge.
Precisely. And look who does it. Munger, Buffett, Jobs, Nadella, Jensen Huang. Tons of successful people are voracious readers.
Even top security pros he mentions, right? Miesler, Haddix, Guido.
Yeah, they're constantly reading dense stuff. So the big takeaway here is about being intentional, really choosing what you consume.
Like mindful eating, but for your brain. Fighting the algorithm's junk food diet.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so building on reading, his next skill is write long-form content.
Okay. So consume it, then produce it. Makes sense.
And again, it's not just about proving what you know. He says writing pushes your thinking even further than reading does.
And it's crucial for that online brand thing, right? Which I know we'll get back to.
Absolutely critical. He stresses the practical side. If you write on, say, a blog, you're building a public body of work.
Something tangible employers can actually see.
Yep. And he says, just start with what you're learning or what interests you. Don't overthink it.
Easier said than done sometimes, though. That fear of putting yourself out there is real.
Totally. He shares advice from his mentor, Jason. Do it scared. Love that. Just start, even if you're terrified.
Do it scared. That's powerful. And there's another benefit to writing publicly, he mentions.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to update your opinions. Showing you can learn and adapt when new evidence comes along.
Oh, that is a good point. In this age of hype and hot takes, being able to publicly say, hey, I thought this, but now I think this, that shows real intellectual honesty. It's rare.
Super valuable. Okay, so read, write, what's next?
Learn how to learn. He makes this really important distinction. Knowing something, like from reading, is not the same as being able to do it. The real learning happens when you put knowledge into practice.
Okay, so bridging the gap between theory and action. How?
He suggests this loop. Read, do, write, relax.
Read, do, write, relax.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that last one.
Yeah, crucial for avoiding burnout, right? But he adds a little warning from his own experience.
No.
Says he maybe spent a bit too much time on the relax part, playing video games back in the day. Regrets missing some opportunities.
Relatable, finding that balance.
Exactly. Moderation is key. Okay, so from the how of learning, he moves to what kind of thinking we need. Develop critical thinking skills.
Right. And he quotes Charlie Munger here, doesn't he?
He does. The quote is amazing. Never hold an opinion on something when you don't know the other side's argument better than they do.
Wow. That's a high bar.
It really is. But the idea is, by exposing yourself to diverse views, different fields, you start making connections.
Intuitive leaps, he calls them.
Yeah, the kind of connections LLMs struggle with because they don't have that breadth of lived experience or cross-disciplinary understanding. It's about seeing the bigger picture.
And he connects this to mindfulness, right? Asking deeper questions about why content exists.
Precisely, which leads perfectly into the fifth skill, practice mindfulness.
He calls this a superpower.
He does, and thinks it benefits everything: finances, relationships, learning, peace of mind, even habits. It's about creating that pause.
The space between a thought and an action.
Exactly. Acknowledging the thought, maybe redirecting it before you just react impulsively.
And meditation is the key tool for building that muscle.
Seems to be his main recommendation. He says it takes patience, consistency, long-term effort. He mentions using Headspace, Rainy Mood, Mala beads, noise-canceling headphones. Over 11 years.
Wow, 11 years. That's commitment. It really highlights how foundational these mental skills are.
Totally. So once you've got those mental muscles working, he shifts to more strategic career moves. And the first one is huge E.
Let me guess. Build and maintain a public brand.
You got it. He says it's arguably the most important advice in the whole piece.
Because employers now just expect it.
They expect a body of work, yeah. Proof you can think, communicate, do stuff. He gives that example of Olivia Gallucci.
Oh yeah, the recent grad who landed a senior security engineer role.
Straight out of college. Because she'd published a ton of content online, now she speaks at conferences. It's incredible.
That's wild. It really shows the power of putting your work out there.
And Daniel Meisler's analogy is perfect here. The NPC versus PC thing.
Non-player character versus player character.
Right. If you're passive, just consuming, you're an NPC. Less likely to thrive.
Yeah.
Building your brand makes you a player character actively shaping your path.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so building the brand helps you become a PC. What's next?
Seek out mentorship. And the key here is having that public content, that brand. It makes finding good mentors way easier.
Because you've already shown you're putting in the work. Mentors don't want to help people who show zero effort.
Exactly. He talks about that frustration from a mentor's view. But if you've shown initiative, you can attract mentors. And he stresses getting a mix of mentors.
Oh, interesting. Not just one guru.
Nope. Someone for hands-on skills, maybe someone else for navigating office politics, another for leadership advice, someone for long-term development.
A personal board of advisors? Kind of.
Sort of. He mentions his own mentors, quite a list of names, and how many became lifelong friends. It shows how deep those relationships can be.
That's really cool. Okay, foundational skills, branding, mentorship. What about formal education? College, certs.
Yeah, he gets into that. Calls it new paradigms. Starts with college. The big question, is it still worth it?
And his answer is nuanced.
Very. He acknowledges that prestigious degrees aren't the guaranteed golden ticket they once were, especially with AI hitting those entry-level jobs. Even internships aren't sure bets for offers anymore.
But he adds an important point about marginalized groups, right?
Yes. He notes college generally still provides a greater positive benefit for them in the job market, so it's a very individual calculation.
And if you were 18 again, what would his strategy be?
Live at home, do 2 years of community college for gen eds to save serious money, then target only top schools in his specific field, focusing heavily on financial aid.
Smart. And while in college, what should you focus on?
Not just classes. Spend time in research labs. Why? To publish content. Build that brand.
Yeah.
It all connects back.
Or, he says, get heavily involved in capture the flag competitions, CTFs. He thinks CTFs offer more direct, lucrative skills and job paths than things like the collegiate cyber defense competition. He even names someone, Dominic Zarnota, as an example.
Okay, interesting distinction. What about certifications then?
Similar caveat about potentially benefiting marginalized groups more. But his main point is quality over quantity.
Meaning?
Go for certs with tough, practical exams that prove you can actually do the job. He mentions OSCP, OSWE, not just multiple choice paper tests like, say, CEH or CISSP, at least not initially.
So hands-on proof is better than theoretical knowledge.
Definitely. But he's also clear, certs don't replace the brand, the public content. They're not a substitute for college either. They're just another piece of public proof.
And what hiring managers really look for is?
Attitude, aptitude, and engagement. Your content, your certs, your projects. They should all signal those three things.
Got it. What about trade schools? Boot camps?
Trades, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, definitely in demand, often pay well. But trade-offs exist. Travel, maybe limited regional need, physical demands long-term.
And coding boot camps.
Yeah.
He wasn't too keen, was he?
Pretty blunt, actually. Said basically, save your money. Why? because LLMs are starting to do the kinds of jobs bootcamp grads were aiming for.
Ouch. So what's the alternative for learning to code?
Good old-fashioned books, affordable online courses like Udemy, or here's a modern twist. Pair up with an LLM to help you learn. Use it as a tutor.
Okay, using the AI to learn rather than having it replace the entry-level job.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to his whole section on AI and skill development.
Right, because LLMs aren't going away.
Nope. So the focus has to be on integration, using them as tools, but smartly, without letting them dull your own thinking or skills.
How do you strike that balance? He gives examples of good versus bad use, right?
Yeah, bad use.
Yeah.
Having an LLM write your blog posts or public content, he calls it 0 calorie.
Meaning it looks like content, but offers no nutritional value for your skills.
And employers can often spot it anyway. Good use. Using LLMs to get over that initial hurdle, that high activation energy when starting something new.
Like generating an outline or drafting some initial code to get you started.
Exactly. Use it to overcome inertia. But, and this is crucial, you must critically review everything the LLM produces.
The flying a rocket ship without instruments analogy.
That's the one. Blindly trusting LLM output is incredibly risky. You have to check its work, understand it, refine it.
He recommends using a whiteboard for code, right, to visualize the structure.
Yeah, helps you see how it all fits, spot the flaws the LLM might have missed or introduced.
And he had that interesting point about LLMs potentially narrowing your thinking.
Right. Because they give you plausible sounding options, you might stop looking further. His exercise. Draw a box for the LLM's ideas.
And then deliberately brainstorm outside that box. Identify adjacent possibilities.
Keep that creative muscle strong. Don't let the tool make you lazy.
Okay, so integrate AI thoughtfully, critically. But what if you just don't want to? Is there another way?
He presents one. A fascinating alternative, this AI-averse path. He uses the Japanese concept of shokunin,
Shokunin.
the artisan.
Yes, but more than just a craftsperson. It's someone whose lifelong devotion elevates their craft to an art form. It transcends function. Think Hayao Miyazaki's animation.
Or incredible sushi chefs, ramen masters.
Exactly. E.S. Chamby mentions a specific artisan, Alan West, and shoe shiners who reach that level. It's about mastery through dedication.
So the idea is you create something so exceptional, so detailed, it becomes scarce. Either actually scarce or perceived scarcity.
Right. That extreme attention to detail generates demand because it's so clearly human, so unique.
Like a high-end mechanical watch, maybe?
Yeah.
Or a unique painting.
Or he even suggests things like hand-bound books typed on a typewriter, errors and all. Things that are inherently anti-digital, anti-AI in their creation.
Wow. That's a demanding path.
Incredibly demanding. But he presents it as viable, a real choice for those who fundamentally reject incorporating AI tools and basically adopt the other advice or commit to becoming a shokunin. A stark choice, but a clear one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that wraps up an incredible deep dive into Keith Hoodlet's If I Were 18 Again. So much timeless advice packed in there.
Absolutely. From those foundational mental skills, reading, writing, learning, thinking critically, mindfulness, through to the strategic stuff like branding and mentorship.
And navigating the new realities of education, certs, and of course AI integration, or even the shokunin alternative. It covers so much ground.
It really does. It feels like a genuine roadmap for navigating these very interesting times we're in.
So the final thought for you listening, given all this, what's the one timeless skill you might commit to working on this week?
Or maybe what's one small step you could take towards that shokunin level of dedication in whatever it is you do?
Really think about how these ideas apply to your own path, your own learning, your own career. It's definitely food for thought.